Hello, community, and welcome to another Keeping It Real with Dr. Anita podcast. I am your host, Dr. Anita Pillai-Wilson, C-Suite Trusted Advisor, Board Director, and Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Consultant, helping members of the C-Suite and their teams reframe diversity conversations from difficult to different. Community, I am so excited. This is the month of July. We're celebrating July 4th, Independence Day. I did my best to show up as a firecracker in person with all these colors. And I am thrilled to have joining us Mr. Michael C. Bush, the CEO of Great Place to Work. And I want to give you a proper introduction, sir. So community, to formally introduce Mr. Michael C. Bush, prior to making his imprint at Great Place to Work as an accomplished serial entrepreneur, Mr. Bush served as the CEO of Tetra Tech Communications, which he grew from $40 million to $300 million in revenues. Since 2015, Mr. Bush has expanded Great Place to Work's global mission to build a better world by helping organizations create great places to work, not just for some, but for all, through Emprising, their culture management platform. And in a 2019 presentation at the Great Place to Work Summit, which you can find on YouTube under the title Igniting Innovation by All, during which Mr. Bush was vulnerable and authentic enough to show off his dance moves to songs by Michael Jackson and Morris Day and the Time, as he introduced the idea that leaders need to be delusional to envision the workplace of the future. Mr. Bush, welcome to the show. It's an honor and a delight to have you. And I want you to give us a little bit of background story about delusional leaders, you, Denzel Washington, and Idris Elba.
Yeah, Dr. Anita, great to be here today, and welcome to everybody who's joining us and listening. Yeah, I talk about delusion because the world as we see it today, it just can't stay this way. Mm-hmm. We have to be able to see something different, and I think that takes some delusion, to see the world not the way that it is, but the way that it can be. Mm-hmm. And so I have some fun with a story about me looking in the mirror and seeing Denzel, but yet I have to look and really see that it's me. Mm-hmm. Yet, aspire in some ways to be Denzel-like, mm-hmm. Let's say. So when I think about the environment, I can look at the world today and see some things, but I want to be able to see something in the future that's a little bit better. And then what is it that I and our organizations can do about that?
What I enjoyed so much about that YouTube video was the fact that you were just real and your people responded to you and they loved you. And I think a lot of times leaders, especially at those high echelons of the leadership team, feel like I got to be buttoned down and keep it together. But people are so much more relatable when you're just a real person. What made you decide to do that at that particular moment in the presentation?
Yeah, I think it was to try and have some fun. Yeah. The work that we do, the work that both of us do, mm-hmm. Around trying to create what we call a great place to work for all. And I know you're trying to do the same thing. These are hard subjects. Mm-hmm. The idea of equity for all is a hard subject. Two people doing the same work at the same level of proficiency, getting the same pay. That's a hard subject. How do I know mm-hmm. it's hard? Because it's not happening. Mm-hmm. And yet well-meaning people want it to happen, but it's not happening. So these are complex subjects. But if we can find a way through, there's a tremendous opportunity for businesses on the other side. So that drive I'm a business person first. Mm-hmm. To drive the most I can in terms of getting great business results. I think creating companies that are highly equitable for all in terms of who's represented, who's getting promoted, who's around the table solving complex problems. If you have some diversity of thought around that table, you're just going to do better. So putting those two things together, that's what I believe. Mm-hmm. So since that's what I believe, it's easy to be authentic. Because that's absolutely what I believe, and people know it. I think people respond well to anyone who's able to say what they believe in, and then you could look at what they're actually doing and see the evidence that they're actually doing it.
You mentioned it's hard, and that's evident because we still haven't seen the level of change that we need to see. And just recently, I put out an ebook on my website, and it's really asking the question of, what's your why not? Simon Sinek always encourages us to figure out what's your why. But when we think about all the data that exists to support the fact that inclusion and belonging, diversity, inclusion, and belonging is important and it's a good thing, I'm still curious as to what's the why not? And to your point, it's hard when it comes to looking at organizational belief systems and breaking down some things in a system that need to be completely obliterated without ruining the way the organization functions. How do we go about doing that?
Yeah, I would say I probably have more data on how not to do it, based on what's been happening. And so and we're a global company. We work in over 140 countries. So what we're talking about right now, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, if you talk about that in the US, it means something completely different than it means in Germany or in Sweden or Switzerland or Brazil and so on. But what I do know, since we do work in all those countries, every country on earth, there's a group of people who are being treated in an inferior way compared to another group. Every country on earth, you can find two people doing a similar job at the same level of proficiency, getting paid different amounts because of this inferiority. It could be gender, it could be the color of your skin, it could be the religion that you belong in, the things you believe in, it could be the caste, the family you were born into, something you had no control of. It could be the school you went to. These are the differences. This is real life, and it creates inequality. And the problem with inequality is the group or the person who feels not equal doesn't bring 100% of themselves to work. Yet you're paying that person, you're giving them benefits, you're heating them, you're cooling them, you're training them. It's just a waste of money. And I just don't understand why you want to waste money in doing something like business. And so in the US, as we think about these things, we usually talk about equity in terms of representation. We talk about in terms of pay, in terms of promotional paths, and so on. And then we get into numbers. How many are here and how many are there? We're forgetting about the purpose of the organization. We move down this checking boxes and who's here and who isn't, and we're moving away from the purpose of the organization. And then we move into, well, why is this happening? And then we go, oh, biases and assumptions. So we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on biases and assumption training. And while the good news is it has made people aware that people have biases and assumptions, that's a huge contribution. But in terms of making a difference, in terms of who gets hired or who gets promoted, I haven't seen the evidence, that we're there yet. And in every company, there can be a lot of activity around a lot of things. If it's not happening at the very top,
that's right,
all that is wasted money. But companies do it all the time. So they'll spend a lot of time and effort on these things. And so I just think, the future of business is getting rid of waste and focusing those resources on things that really matter. This is an opportunity for us to do that. And I'd say old thinking is probably why we haven't really made progress. The second thing is that executives are doing pretty well. That's why they're executives. So when you talk to them about change, they may say a lot of things, but in fact, things are going pretty well for them. Why should they change? Well, things can get better. Yeah, but they're pretty good now. You have this basic conflict between self-interest, and collective interest that is just, it's just human. So I'm not saying, I know you put a lot of energy into this. I put a lot of energy into this. We both have hope, but these are the reasons that, we haven't seen the progress that we could see.
For everything that you've just stated, that's usually why in my work, I always start working with the C-suite team. And it's not to change people, as you know, is to accelerate that awareness so that we can change the culture. Because when people realize how they're showing up, when people realize the misalignment, the innocent sometimes misalignment between the intentions of their words and the impacts that their words and actions have on others, that's when you really start to see culture change. And I've noticed that we must very clearly make the distinction between being politically correct and just learning how to speak to one another in human affirming terms. I mean, for instance, no one would ever go to their leader, whatever level that is, and express themselves in a way that's disrespectful. But when we say, take that same thought into consideration when you're working with your peers or your colleagues, people assume that we're trying to get folks to be politically correct. What do you make of that? Am I just reading into something?
No, I think you're you're talking about wasting money. That, to me, and time. We're not talking about being politically correct. We're not trying to change people. We're trying to make more profit and increase cash flow. That's the whole point of business. And by doing that, you can do other things. You can take care of your community. You can take care of your employees. You can improve the planet, decrease climate change. That's what profit can do. If you don't have profit, you can't do those things. So I'm a business person just like you. I believe that's the whole point. So you want to be careful spending time on things that aren't, officially, clearly linked to those things. So I believe that there is a business case for diversity. I don't spend much time on it because you can Google it right now. There's probably 7,700, I believe, that'll come up pretty quickly. It's been proven time and time again. But what's key is whether or not a leader feels there's a reason to do some things differently that'll help their company. And leaders do things all the time without a business case. Leaders buy companies without a business case. They will do the business analysis and all the modeling. It says don't buy it, and they'll buy it. So human behavior does this all the time. They'll expand into another country, even though the business case and modeling says don't do it. They'll do it. So this is normal. So I just want executives to kind of be open-minded to behave in this area in the same way that they do in other areas, which is you use some data to inform, but you never use the data to make the decision.
That's right.
You're making a decision based on some other things, some intuitive experience, hopefully the experience around your table. And the more experience you have around that table, the better off you're going to be. And so if you've got limited, brilliant geniuses around your table, but they've only participated in a growth environment, they've only participated in an environment where there's excess capital. They've only participated in an environment where they got other people's money versus organically generated money. They're going to approach things completely different. When you've grown organically, you see money completely different than when it's other people's money. So you want that diversity around the table as well. And you can go on and on and on. You want people around the table who have, know how to get a lot done with less. People who understand scarcity. The only way to understand scarcity is you've lived it.
Yep.
So these are the things you want around your table, to have that kind of those different perspectives around the table when we think about this idea and this thing that we need to do. That's just good business.
To your point about the accessibility of data that says this is smart for business, like you, I don't make it a practice to come at it with data. It has to come from, to your point, a personal insight from a lived experience, from listening to someone else who has a different experience other than yourself to help inform you and help you make those better decisions. So when we're talking about experiences and people, when you and I first met in March, thanks to the introduction of Marissa Wallman, CEO of Leaderology, we talked about what you consider to be important characteristics for all leaders as having personal purpose, humility, and practicing curiosity by asking questions to get better understanding. Tell us a little bit more about that, particularly when we're talking about, it's not always about the data that's going to help you make the decisions, it's those lived experiences. And from that perspective, when I think about diversity, when we talk about our portfolios, we all want diverse portfolios so that our money can grow, but then why don't we value diverse people so that our business can grow?
Yeah. It's I never thought about it that way, but I like that. So, it's like diversity works over here, but it doesn't work over there. I think to become great, which is what we believe in at Great Place to Work. Great is something you cannot achieve. You're always becoming great. That takes humility to say that. So that's why it's the starting point. We've done work with Michael Phelps, one of the greatest swimmers of all time, who says he wasn't great. He was becoming great. And he talks about his daily pursuit to become great. So we like that. We like that idea. We embrace that idea. And it means that every leader has to start there, which is they are trying to become great, which means they are changing. We talk a lot about metamorphosis, the transformation of the caterpillar to the butterfly. and we use these analogies to try and help people see nature does it all the time. We're the least able. Mm-hmm. We seem to be the least able. And yet there's great opportunity if we're able to do it. And when you're humble and you want to get better, that means you got to learn. The only way to learn is to ask questions. Mm-hmm. That's the only way to learn, because if you don't ask questions, you're going to get told what to do and you're not going to learn. Mm-hmm. You got to be told every day to get up at 6 and to shine your boots and all those things. You can get things done, but you're not going to improve. You're just going to be, able to take orders. So the curiosity is asking questions, and great listeners ask great questions. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that's what makes a great listener. When people say, boy, I really love talking to you, you're a great listener, it's because I've asked questions or someone's asked me questions. You have a unique experience. So that's why the humility leads to the curiosity. Now the courage comes next, which is, are you willing to change? Yeah. Are you willing to stop doing things the same way? Are you willing to try something different? Are you willing to be yourself? Are you willing to fully commit, to a new way of doing things? Are you willing to accept it when your team or you make an honest mistake and learn from that and move forward and not derail someone's career because they made, an honest mistake? So this is the mindset for us of what we call the 4-all leader. Humble, curious, courageous, always changing, trying to get better. And you believe everyone around you can get better. Mm-hmm. And you let them know that. And you set the expectation, and your role is to help them get better. So you may be here today. You have a belief that if we work together, you can be here. Mm-hmm. And we're all trying to do that. That's change. Yes. That's the work. We happen to be in a business where we do surveying. So we have data on whether you're getting better or not. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I got to look in the mirror and see who I see versus who I want to see. The data enables us to do that. But this is what we call a high trust culture, where the organization is working that way, where we go beyond empathy, understanding what it's like to walk in your shoes, to compassion, which is, now that I have some understanding of what it was like, I want to make things better for you. Yes. And build a company where everybody's trying to do that for each other. Yes. Now, that company doesn't exist, but that's the delusion. Mm-hmm. That's the promised land, trying to create a company like that, where everybody's trying to make things better for one another towards a purpose. Mm-hmm. So it's aligned improvement. It's not just, I want to help you in your soccer game. That's over here. Okay, we're talking about the things that we're here to do and getting paid to do. And how to work together. So humility, curiosity, and courage.
Thank you for that. Community, I hate to do it. I'm about to jump out of my skin, but we're going to have to pause the conversation right here. Guess what, community? We've got 3 more conversations with Mr. Bush, and we've already gotten our money's worth, right, from this first one, but I can't wait to continue on with the next 3. And so if you would like to listen to this podcast again or any of my previous podcasts, you know where to go on the website, dranita.com. Make sure you spell out the word doctor. And at the top, click the link that says Keeping It Real Podcast. In the meantime, if you want to know more about my services and my resources, there's plenty of information there. You can also find me on your favorite podcast player. So do me a favor, get in the flow, follow, like, and overshare any of my podcasts that help you reframe diversity conversations from difficult to different. Until next time, this is Dr. Anita reminding you to stay blessed and keep it real.